Hey everybody, today I'm going to be talking about Stephen King's 1983 novel Christine and demonstrating what to look for when trying to identify a first US and a first UK edition of the book. The US edition of Christine was published in 1983 by Viking. There's the spine, there's the back cover. Kind of love this image, Stephen King and friend. It's kind of corny, but I love it. The inside, front flap, the price for a first is $16.95. Look for the Viking Press and their address on the back flap. And on the copyright page. First published in 1983 by the Viking Press. There is no number line on the first edition. Underneath the jacket, nice red boards with a black cloth. Stephen King's name printed in red foil, the title in silver. Nice decisions on the color scheme for this. I really like it. And SK's initials imprinted in silver on the front cover. There is the first US edition. The first UK edition was published by Hodder and Stoughton. And there's the back cover image. I'm not exactly sure why it wasn't published by Stephen King's typical publisher in the UK in the 80s, which was MacDonald. I think that this, as well as Pet Sematary, was almost an afterthought. There may not have originally intended to be UK editions, but whatever the case, Christine is actually pretty rare in the UK edition. The total print run, I understand, was 12,000 copies, which makes it pretty uncommon. Especially uncommon, speaking from my experience trying to find one, is a dust jacket with a printed price. So the original price, $8.95. Often either this will be blank, because like a lot of UK editions, it was intended to be exported around Europe and sold in different countries for different prices in different currency. So it's either blank or it's even designed with a line to show booksellers where to clip the jacket to affix a sticker or their own price. Or this white part is attached but just blank. So anyway, that's on the copyright page for the UK edition. First printed in Great Britain, 1983. So you want to look for that language. No other language that indicates a later printing. When you take the jacket off, like a lot of UK editions, it's just one color. In this case, black. Sort of a papery black all the way around with gold printing on the spine. It's not a bad looking book. I do prefer the US edition just because of the color scheme that it uses, as well as the cloth over the spine. I am a big sucker for the tactile experience of cloth on the spine. That is the first UK edition. As far as jacket design, the UK edition is cool in that it shows the Plymouth Fury, it shows Christine. It's a little on the nose for me. I am very partial to the stylized version on the cover art on the US edition. And like I said, the US edition with Stephen King and friend, it's cute, it's kind of corny, it makes me smile, and it is my preference. So hands down, in every category, I say the US edition is the cooler looking book. Christine was released in 1983 in a signed and limited edition by Grant. The Grant edition is super badass, full of really gruesome, evocative art, and definitely is a grail of mine. There were 1,000 numbered copies, 26 lettered copies. It is a very valuable book, easily in the four figures at this point, so probably out of reach, but man, it's one that I love seeing pictures of because it's cool. From the dust jacket to the interior art, it's a really neat edition. In 2013, PS Publishing in the UK released the 30th anniversary edition of 750 numbered copies that were not signed by Stephen King. So it has been represented in limited editions both in the US and in the UK, both of which are really cool, especially if you're a fan of the novel. At some point in the 80s, Stephen King is infamously quoted as saying that he is the literary equivalent of a Big Mac and fries. That cheapens his work. I'm not 100% sure why he would say something like that, or what he really meant by that back in the day, and he has since regretted making that statement, understandably so. But if there was ever a Stephen King book that feels like the overstuffed equivalent of a Big Mac and fries, it is Christine. It's I believe, the first book that Stephen King had sold to the movies before it actually was released, making the book and the movie very close together in terms of their release dates. And it feels, in a way that his books hadn't felt to that point, maybe like it was written with the movies in mind. I initially read Christine when I was a teenager, and I really liked it. I remember having fond memories of it. I hung on every page. I found it very gripping. I recently, just in the last year or so, tried to reread the book, and I actually didn't finish it. I'm very familiar with the story, very familiar with the movie, and I think that over-familiarity had something to do with it, but I just couldn't shake that sense of padding, overstuffing that was somehow hindering the pace and the trajectory of the novel. And I think I didn't even notice it when I was a teenager, but the first part of the book is written in first-person narrative from the perspective of Dennis, and then there's a point at which Dennis goes in the hospital, but the novel continues, the story continues without him. And Stephen King, in an interview, talked about this and realized, oh, holy crap, my whole novel's been written from this perspective of this character that's now no longer in the day-to-day. And so he just simply shifts to third person, omniscient. And when Dennis gets out of the hospital, he switches back to first person. I found that distracting, and that might be nitpicky, but I found it distracting. I have found it fascinating to reread books, and this point in my life that I first read as a teenager. Some of them I like more, for instance, The Shining, and some of them I like less, for instance, Christine. It's a cool story. The marketing and the tie-ins related to the car, which is such an iconic car, are classic. I just found it to be a bit bloated and overwritten and calorie laden, a bit like a Big Mac and fries. But it is a big part of Stephen King's classic period, which I consider the first 15 years or so of his career. So of course I am glad to have it in my collection. I'm glad to have read it. I'm glad to I'm glad it exists, even if it's not my favorite. So there you go. Please don't disown me. Please don't stop following the channel, because I recognize that Christine is a lot of people's favorite, and it is well loved, and I get why. I just don't necessarily see it the same way. Anyway, I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you for your time. I will talk to you later. Bye.